Hey everyone, in this video I want to do a quick unboxing and just my first thoughts on these Caran Neocolor water soluble crayons. So first of all, you can call these watercolor crayons or you can call them wax pastels. To me, that just sounds counterintuitive, so I'm going to be calling them watercolor crayons because that's kind of what they look like. But they come in this beautiful box. They are kind of expensive, so if you're looking for a affordable option, instead of getting 30 colors, you can get the smaller sets too. And anything, when it comes to watercolor, that sometimes less is more. I get the 30 colors just because some of these colors here are just so beautiful. So anyway, so they come in this nice metal tin, and let's see, not sure how to open it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it opens up. There's a little packet, it looks like, and there's a little foam here so that the tips of the crayons don't get ruined. So that's good. Sorry, it's the first time I'm looking at it, so I want to make sure everything looks okay. Yeah, I really like this. There's a huge range in colors. I love all these purples and blues and greens right here. Those are definitely my jam. Let's see, opening this up, what do we got here? Okay, so it looks like this kind of lists out the colors that we've got here and just some general information and then some ways that you could use these crayons. Yeah, and so these are some of the different sets that you could possibly get. So they come in as small as a pack of 10 and as many as a pack of 84. That's probably kind of pushing it, but it looks like they have some metallic colors. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, on the other side, it looks like we've got some more of the colors and the metallic colors over here. And then just some more information on how you can use them. Yeah, so the reason why I picked this set up was because, as a watercolor artist, I love my paints, but some part of me just felt like, hey, I want to try and explore different types instead of just paint that comes out of a tube. Why not try liquid? Why not try these, crayon types? So that's kind of what got me started. I also did buy the Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus watercolors too. So hopefully a product review will be coming for that. So anyway, for now, let's just put this away. Okay, let's take a closer look at these crayons. So they're about 3 inches or so in length, and in terms of width and how they feel in your hand, they feel pretty comfortable. So if you already enjoy drawing with colored pencils or crayons, then this won't feel too far out there. In terms of information, it has the name of the color right there in the middle. The paper wrapping is also designed so that you can easily rip off, each section as you use up the crayons. That's great. I like how they come in this nice tin, although I'll admit they're probably not going to stay this nice for too long. I tend to, just as artists, it gets messy and not everything gets put back the same way. So after today, it probably will not look this nice. So that's why I'm also recording it so that I can remember how beautiful it was. But it's all right. We will make beautiful things with this. Okay, so what I want to do now is just take a couple of these colors and just do a quick color test and see how they blend, see how they look on paper, see how they layer, just try to practice some of these watercolor basic techniques using these crayons. All right, so to test them out, I'm just using a simple water brush. I'll start with some, slightly brighter colors just so it's easy to see on screen. So there are a couple ways that you can use these crayons. So first, you can just use the crayon itself and just draw directly on the paper like so. But you can also use like a water brush or a wet paintbrush, and then, you gotta wet the paintbrush first, and then just apply the paintbrush to the crayon and then paint directly on the paper as well. I don't think my brush is wet enough. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's see how this color blends. So I'm not using that much water and it's already, spreading really nicely. The original lines that I had drawn are kind of disappearing. Let me add a little bit more water to kind of fade that out. Now, another test that we can kind of see in a little bit is, watercolors tends to dry lighter. So let's see how, this looks really bright and vibrant right now, but maybe in a couple minutes, once this layer has dried, we'll see how bright or vibrant it is still. And that's the thing about watercolors, you really have to layer in order to, create depth. And that's the beauty of watercolors. But sometimes I kind of want this vibrancy, from the get-go. So let's see how that works out. Okay, let's try another color. I really like this. What is this color? It says blue or ultramarine. Yeah, very vibrant blue color. Let's see how it blends when you have two colors. So let's have this, and then let's have maybe the yellow. Let's do this lemon yellow color over here. And see how the two blend together. Again, I'm just squeezing out a little bit of water from my water brush and then just letting the brush mix into it. Yeah, I really like how, this blending is happening right here. I wonder if I should have done a little bit more overlapping. For example, doing the yellow first and then doing the blue on top of it instead of making it two separate areas. So let me try that real quick. And then do a little bit of the blue on top, but then also overlap it. So let's see how this blends. This time I didn't add enough of the blue. Well, obviously it takes a little bit of getting used to, but so far I'm really liking it. Okay, let's come back to this red that we did earlier. And yeah, to my eyes, this hasn't changed in terms of vibrancy. It still looks really bright and I really like it. All right, so let's see how it does in terms of layering. So let's say I have this base color of yellow. And, another test that I should probably do is test its transparency because they seem to be pretty opaque. The only time that it seemed to be very transparent was when I lifted off the color from the crayon itself instead of laying the crayon down first. So that's, if you want it really light, perhaps you take that approach. But it seems like when I put the color down first, it seems to be pretty opaque. So anyway, so let's see how this layering works. So let's go ahead and blend this out. Oh, that was a lot of water. Yeah, this is a very bright yellow. I mean, I like it, but it's very bright. All right, so I'm gonna let that layer dry and then we'll come back to it. But yeah, let's continue to test how the colors look when I pick it up from the crayon itself. I kind of like this green color. It's called malachite green. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's really dark, but I'm not sure how it'll kind of turn out. One of the things I should probably do after this video is create a little swatch for my reference. So it's taking a little bit of rubbing to kind of transfer the color over. It's not a big deal, but it does take a little bit of time to kind of coax the color out of the crayon. Anyway, so let's see how transparent this is. Yeah. So even though this is a very dark looking colored crayon, it's turning out very, very light. It's like a tealish color. It's very pretty. Okay. And I'm kind of curious how it looks when it's really dark. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so it does take a little bit of rubbing. So if you drew too hard with the crayon, you can kind of still see the crayon markings underneath. So it does take a little bit of rubbing with the brush. That's why I think using these water brushes are probably better than using your nice brushes, because if you're going to be rubbing that much, although, I shouldn't exaggerate, it's not that much rubbing, but if you are going to be rubbing a lot, you don't want to be ruining your brushes. So while this yellow layer is still drying, I wanted to kind of check in and look at the quality of the paint or the crayons and how they dry. So looking at the red, I don't know if you can kind of tell, but there is a little bit of, leftover markings that didn't get really blended out. And so when I go back in there and try to blend it out, it looks like I'm actually, I am reactivating the color, which is great, but now I've sort of lifted off the color a little bit. And now you can totally tell that there's a completely different, texture going on here. And so that's not always desirable, especially if you wanted to keep that, the same value. So now I have two different values within the same area. It doesn't look as pleasing anymore, but that's what happens. So I guess to fix that would be to either make sure that you're using your brush to fully rub out all of the markings, or yeah, I'm not sure what else you could do, but just make sure to get rid of all those markings. I do notice that there is a little bit of granulation happening, but again, I can't tell if that's just because I didn't rub out the markings enough, or if that's just the quality of the crayons. Okay, moving on to this one, same thing here with the blue, kind of at the edges, you can sort of see sort of remnants of that. So I can try to blend it, which is happening, which is great. I'm reactivating the paints. I'm trying to be a little bit lighter to try to keep the pigment on the paper and not try to lift it up, but at the same time trying to get rid of the granulations. Okay, so you can kind of still see the granulation sort of happening. So, again, it's not that big of a deal, but, if you were doing like a final painting or something, just beware that, when you reactivate these layers, these hard lines tend to form. And I don't know if you want to use these for final works of art. I can't speak to the light fastness of these crayons, so just be aware of that. That's all. Okay, and then even in this one, kind of the same thing, sort of the same kind of granulation is happening. Now it could be just my paper quality. This is just basic, 300 GSM, 140 pound watercolor paper by Canson. So it's not the highest quality, but it's not the lowest quality either. It's kind of just somewhere in the middle. But again, that's kind of happening here too. So, and again, I don't know if it's because of how maybe my markings need to be closer together. Because when I look at this yellow, it's a very even surface. But here, I had some space in between my lines. So perhaps that's why that's happening. Even in this dark teal one, the lines were pretty close together. So, I'm still figuring this out as I go. I didn't claim to be an expert or anything, but these are just some things that I'm learning as I'm testing these for the first time. Okay, this yellow layer is like still semi-wet. I just used a lot of paper, so let's give that a little bit more time to dry and we'll come back to it. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to do was actually draw something or paint something together. So, it's fall here in the Chicagoland area. So I'm going to do a pumpkin. So let's get some basic colors. Let's see what color this is. vermilion. That's a nice orangey color. Let's get some red. Okay, so first I'm just gonna kind of outline like that. This wrapper is really loose. Not a big deal, but you know, it might get annoying later. We'll see. I'm just doing a quick outline first, and then I'll kind of color it in. So kind of what I learned, you know, trying to keep the colors sort of closer together. And see if that makes a difference in terms of how the colors are blended later on. I'm also being mindful of all the white space because, you know, with watercolor, you don't want all the colors to just blend together and become one big blob. You really want to be mindful of white space. So, and I think with these crayons, because you're using a water brush to blend them out, you know, you could run the risk of covering this whole thing in color and then not having any white space. So you want to be really mindful of that, because once you start blending, it'll be kind of hard to stop because you want to kind of fill up the whole space. So just be mindful of that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's see how they blend. Okay, the colors definitely are blending better when you have the strokes, the crayon strokes closer together. I'm also washing out my brush because again, I want to preserve this white space up here. Okay, and just like a regular painting, I'm going to skip the adjacent areas so that the colors don't unnecessarily blend there either. All right, so far I'm really liking how this is turning out. The colors are really just effortlessly blending together. I think that key about keeping the strokes really close together is coming in handy. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be using these. I think what's kind of tricky to blend are these single strokes that I have, especially like here right on the edge, because you want to keep that line really skinny, but at the same time you don't want it to look like you blended it with a crayon or you colored it with a crayon. So that's kind of hard, but I mean so far it's okay. Or like this outline. I either shouldn't have done an outline or I should have done it in a really, really light color so that I don't have to worry about having to blend it. But again, so far I really, really like it. Okay, yeah, so this is kind of that first layer. I I'm I'm really impressed, honestly, at how these are blending and how these colors are working with each other. I do want to try a little bit of layering, so we'll come back to this. But in the meantime, I think this yellow layer has, oh, finally dry. Okay, so let's try some layering here as well. Let's see how that looks. Again, trying to keep my strokes kind of together, closer together as I've learned. Okay, so let's see how these blend and layer. Yeah, I think this light blue on top of the yellow is layering really well. It's very transparent. I can definitely see the lower, the yellow layer beneath it. Let's see how the red turns out. Or this is a carmine color. Yeah, similarly, even in the darkest area right here, I can kind of tell that the overall color has been changed because of the yellow layer underneath it. Let's see this blue or this emerald green. It's a really beautiful green. Okay, it's a little harder to tell here, but definitely in the lighter area here, I can tell that these layers are quite transparent. So yeah, what I also look for in transparency is that, I don't want to activate the layer beneath it. So it doesn't look like I really did, which is what you want. So yeah, so I really like how that turned out. Okay, so coming back to my pumpkin, I kind of wanted to just add just a little bit more details. So, just make some of these darker areas just a little bit darker and kind of define, these separate areas of a pumpkin and see how that turns out. So again, using, really light strokes of this brown. And what I was afraid of was that I was going to reactivate the layer below it, kind of like the first strokes. Okay, so what I was afraid that might happen is that I would reactivate when trying to blend out the brown, that I would reactivate the layer below it. And it is sort of happening. And perhaps that's kind of inevitable, but at the same time, that's not how regular watercolors works. If you let the layer completely dry, you don't really have to worry about reactivating the layer below it as long as you don't have a lot of water. And I'm not squeezing out any additional water from my water brush. So, some of this red and orange here and some of this lighter orange here did get reactivated, and I am seeing the colors kind of lightening over here. I'm trying to be as light as I can with my touch, but it is happening and I can see it. So I think when working with these crayons, you want to kind of work in just one layer. So try to achieve, all of that color and depth and the color blends that you might want to see in that one layer. And if you're in a total pinch and you have to, add a second layer, just make sure that it's more of like a, full on layering, sort of like this, where you're covering the entire area instead of doing targeted layering like this, where you just want to add a little bit of, highlight or shadows, because it doesn't seem to be working as well. And again, I could be using this completely wrong. So if you, have used these before and you found success in terms of, layering or adding, a second layer, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so that kind of concludes my quick unboxing and testing of the colors of these Caran watercolor crayons, as I'm calling them, but you can also call them wax pastels. Again, they come in lots of different sets. So this is a 30 color set, but they also have a 10 and 15 and all the way up to 84. And that one has metallic colors. So You know, again, this metal tin is really nice. It's very slim. I like that. Doesn't take up a lot of room. It's pretty lightweight. I probably won't take this out into the field, but if I had to set a 10 or 15, I may. And again, looking at the colors and the testing of these, you know, they're very vibrant from the get-go. And so when you're painting like a final piece, like a pumpkin, you know, just lay all the colors down, you know, so putting down the yellow with the red and the orange just all down in the first layer so that when you go into blend, you know, it's just seamless and it's so easy. And you can layer as we've seen here, and you can, you know, take the color directly from the crayon if you want, and you get this really nice pastel, beautiful color, or you can draw directly on the paper first and then apply water. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.